The hegemony patrol fleet drifted through the void near the tribunal gates like silent judges. Commander Kethrall stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the scanner displays with barely concealed boredom. In 50 cycles of service, he had seen countless species arrive at these gates. All had knelt. All had submitted. It was the way of things. The gates themselves were monuments to hegemony power. Massive rings of dark metal floated in space, covered with symbols from 100 conquered worlds. They marked the boundary between free space and hegemony territory. Any ship that passed through without permission would be destroyed. That was the law. That had been the law for 50,000 years. "Sir, we have a spatial distortion," his sensor officer reported. "Something is coming through." Kethrall barely glanced up. "Standard procedure. Identify the vessel and prepare subjugation protocols." The distortion grew larger. Space itself seemed to tear open like fabric being ripped apart. Through the wound in reality, something emerged. The sensor officer's voice changed. Fear crept into it. "Sir, the vessel, it's not in our database. The design is completely unknown." Now Kethrall looked. On the main display, a ship hung in space. It was not beautiful like hegemony vessels. It had no flowing curves or decorative elements. Instead, it was angular and brutal. Dark gray armor covered its hull in overlapping plates. Weapons bristled from every surface. It looked like a hammer. It looked like war. "Hail them," Kethrall ordered. "Inform them they have entered hegemony space without permission. They must surrender immediately." The communication channel opened. A face appeared on the screen. Kethrall studied it. The creature had smooth skin, dark eyes, and hair on its head. It wore a uniform of deep blue. Its expression was calm but hard. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth Warship Indomitable. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Kethrall felt a moment of confusion. Earth? He searched his memory. Yes, there was a world called Earth in the records. It had been marked as primitive and quarantined 12,000 years ago. Primitive species did not build warships like this. "You speak of peace while carrying weapons," Kethrall said coldly. "You have violated hegemony law. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." The human captain's expression did not change. "We recognize no law but our own. We seek passage through this region. We have no quarrel with you." A wave of shock passed through Kethrall's bridge crew. No species spoke to the hegemony this way. Not after seeing the gates. Not after understanding what they represented. This human did not seem to understand her position. "Your ignorance is no excuse," Kethrall replied. "This is your final warning. Submit or be destroyed." Captain Vasquez leaned forward slightly. "Humanity kneels to no one. We tried to warn you." The channel closed. Kethrall felt anger replace his confusion. How dare this primitive species reject the hegemony? They would learn. They always learned. All ships open fire. Disable their engines first. We will take survivors for interrogation. 3 hegemony cruisers unleashed their weapons, plasma beams, and missile salvos crossed the distance between the fleets. They struck the human ship. The explosions lit up space like new suns. When the light faded, the Indomitable was still there. Its shields had held. Not just held, but barely seemed affected. The armor plating showed no damage at all. "Impossible," Kethrall whispered. "No ship can withstand that much firepower." The Indomitable rotated slowly. Weapon ports along its hull began to glow with blue-white light. Kethrall suddenly felt fear. Real fear. Something he had not felt in decades of service. Evasive maneuvers. All ships, emergency. The human ship fired. The weapons were unlike anything in hegemony records. Beams of concentrated energy punched through the cruiser's shields as if they did not exist. They cut through armor like paper. One cruiser simply exploded. Another broke in half. The third began spinning out of control, atmosphere venting from a dozen breaches. The entire engagement lasted 7 seconds. Kethrall stood frozen on his bridge, staring at the destruction. 3 of his ships, gone, in seconds. by a single enemy. Vessel from a species that should not even have space travel. The Indomitable did not press its attack. It simply hung in space, weapons still glowing. A message appeared on Kethral's screen. Just 5 words. We offered you peace. Then space twisted again. The human ship vanished back into the quantum void, leaving behind wreckage and burning debris, leaving behind questions, leaving behind the first crack in 50,000 years of unbroken hegemony rule. In the silence that followed, Kethral's communications officer spoke quietly. Sir, we're receiving emergency transmissions from throughout this sector. Other patrols are reporting similar encounters. The human ship appears to have been in multiple locations simultaneously. Kethral sank into his command chair. His hands were shaking. Send a priority alert to the Hegemony Council. Tell them everything has changed. Across the galaxy, in slave pens and work camps, in colonies forced to serve the hegemony. For generations, whispers began to spread. Whispers that traveled faster than light. Whispers of a ship that came from nowhere. Whispers that the masters could bleed. Whispers that perhaps, after 50,000 years, there was finally hope. The Council of Ascendants met in emergency session for the first time in 3,000 years. 7 representatives from 7 ancient species sat in the Great Chamber on Zenthar Prime, the throne world at the heart of hegemony space. The chamber itself was a monument to their power. Walls made from compressed neutron matter, floors that had witnessed the submission of 1,000 races, ceiling carved from a single crystal taken from a dying star. High Ascendant Vormal was the eldest among them. He had lived for 12,000 years, sustained by technology that kept death at bay. He had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He had watched species emerge from their home worlds full of hope and ambition, only to kneel before hegemony might. Always, they knelt. Until now. Explain this disaster, demanded Ascendant Threnix, his crystalline form pulsing with angry light. How did one ship destroy 3 of our cruisers? Commander Kethral stood before them, his uniform still scorched from the battle. The human vessel used weapons we have never encountered. Their shields operate on principles unknown to our science. Our most powerful attacks had no effect. One ship, Vormal said quietly. What of the reports from other sectors? A tactical officer stepped forward, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers appeared across multiple sectors, each one marking an engagement with human forces. In the last rotation, we have recorded 37 separate encounters with human vessels. They appear, engage our forces, then vanish. We have lost over 100 ships. Silence filled the chamber. 100 ships in a single rotation. The hegemony had not lost that many vessels in a century of normal operations. How is this possible? Show me the Earth records, Vormal commanded. The hologram changed, displaying an old survey report. Earth. Catalogued 12,000 years ago during the 3rd expansion. Class M world, oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, single large moon. Inhabitants at primitive technological level. Stone tools, basic agriculture. Standard quarantine protocols applied. The world was marked as off-limits and forgotten. Forgotten, Vormal repeated. And in 12,000 years, they went from stone tools to weapons that can destroy our cruisers. This is not normal development. He gestured to the tactical officer. Show the quarantine zone. Show me the sensor readings. The hologram zoomed in on a region of space surrounding Earth's solar system. Strange patterns rippled through the data. Temporal distortions. Spatial anomalies. Reality itself seemed bent around that region of space. Someone tampered with that world, Vormal said slowly. Someone hid it. Protected it. Gave it time to develop without our interference. Who would dare? Threnix demanded. Vormal's ancient eyes held a distant look. Someone who remembered what we once were. Someone who still believed in freedom. Before the others could question him, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The tactical officer's face went pale. High Ascendants, we have reports coming in from the Kethri sector. There is a rebellion. The slave colonies are rising up. They have human weapons, human technology. More alarms. More reports. The holographic map began to fill with warning markers. Rebellions across a dozen worlds. Slave revolts in mining colonies. Prison breaks in detention centers. And everywhere the same pattern. Human ships appearing, distributing weapons, then vanishing before hegemony forces could respond. They are not just fighting us, Vormal realized. They are freeing our slaves. They are destroying our entire system of control. Threnix rose from his seat. Then we must respond with overwhelming force. Assemble the Grand Armada. Show these humans what happens to those who defy the hegemony. The other ascendants voiced their agreement. The Grand Armada had not been deployed in 5,000 years. 10,000 ships, representing the combined military might of the hegemony. No force in the galaxy could stand against it. But Vormal sat quietly, studying the holographic display. He saw something the others did not. The human attacks were not random. They followed a pattern. They targeted specific locations, supply depots, communication hubs, slave worlds. The humans were not trying to conquer. They were trying to break the chains. In his long life, Vormal had seen this strategy before. 50,000 years ago, when the hegemony itself had been young, when they had fought against their own masters, when they had promised themselves they would never become what they had defeated. But promises were easy to forget over thousands of years. Power was easy to justify. Control was easy to maintain. Until someone reminded you what freedom looked like. Aboard the Indomitable, Captain Vasquez stood in her ready room with Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's chief science officer. A holographic display showed the results of their first strikes. 3 hegemony patrols destroyed, 5 slave colonies freed, weapons and supplies delivered to resistance movements on a dozen worlds. The hegemony will respond with everything. They have, Chen said quietly. We have awakened a sleeping giant. Vasquez nodded. That was always the plan. We cannot fight them alone. But we can show the oppressed that the masters are not invincible. We can give them hope. We can give them a chance. Chen turned to face her. Elena, there is something you need to know. About Earth. About why we were quarantined. He pulled up another display. Ancient records. Hidden files. 12,000 years ago, a hegemony scientist named Aelith came to Earth. He was horrified by what the hegemony had become. He could not stop it, but he could save one species, give them a chance to develop differently. So he placed Earth in a temporal bubble, hidden from sensors, protected from interference, and he left behind something else. Knowledge, technology, not given freely, but hidden in our genetic code, waiting for us to evolve enough to unlock it. Vasquez stared at the data. We are not a natural species. We are completely natural, Chen replied. But we were given a gift, a different path. The hegemony's technology is ancient, stagnant, unchanging. Ours is young, innovative, adaptive. We solved problems they never thought to question. We created weapons they never imagined, not because we are superior, but because we are different. He paused, his expression troubled. And now we must use that gift to tear down an empire that has stood for 50,000 years. The question is, what will we become in the process? Vasquez looked out at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, the hegemony was gathering its forces. Somewhere out there, slaves were rising up with hope in their hearts. And somewhere, an ancient empire was beginning to realize that its time might finally be ending. We will become what we choose to become, she said finally. And we choose freedom. The truth spread across the galaxy faster than the hegemony could contain it. The Indomitable was not alone. 37 more human warships phased into reality across hegemony space in a coordinated strike. Each one carried the same message. Each one fought with the same devastating efficiency. Each one freed slaves and distributed weapons before vanishing back into quantum space. On the mining world of Kethri 7, Zira stood among her people, as a human ship descended from the clouds. She had been born in chains. Her parents had died, in chains. Her grandparents before them had never known freedom. For 8,000 years her species had served the hegemony, digging precious metals from the poisoned earth. The human ship landed in the central square of the slave quarters. Its cargo bay opened. Weapons flowed out. Not slave weapons, not mining tools turned into crude clubs, real weapons. Energy rifles, armor, communication equipment, and with them came instructions, translated into every language. A human officer stepped down the ramp. She was young, perhaps only 30 cycles old, but her eyes held something Zira had never seen in hegemony overseers. Respect. My name is Lieutenant Sarah Chen. We come from Earth. We were once like you. We lived under the threat of domination, but we chose to stand. Now we offer you the same choice. Take these weapons. Take your freedom. Or stay in chains. The choice is yours. Zira stepped forward. Her hands, scarred from decades of mining, reached for a rifle. It felt heavy. It felt powerful. It felt like hope. We choose to stand, she said. Behind her, thousands of voices echoed the words. We choose to stand. The hegemony response was swift and brutal. Commander Cathrall, promoted despite his defeat, led a fleet of 200 warships to crush the Kethri rebellion. They arrived expecting to find poorly armed slaves. Instead, they found a prepared defense. The humans had not just given weapons. They had given tactics, strategy, the will to fight. The battle for Kethri 7 lasted 3 days. Cathrall lost half his fleet before retreating. The rebellion held. Word spread. If Kethri could stand, others could too. In the hegemony war rooms, panic was setting in. The Grand Armada was assembling, but it took time to gather 10,000 ships from across the galaxy. Meanwhile, rebellions bloomed on 100 worlds. Supply lines were disrupted. Communication networks were being sabotaged. The carefully maintained system of control was collapsing. High Ascendant Vormal accessed the ancient archives in secret. Files that had not been opened in 40,000 years. Files that told the truth about the hegemony's origins. He read accounts of the War of Liberation, when 7 young species had united to overthrow their oppressors. He read the promises they had made. Never to become tyrants. Never to forget the value of freedom. Never to make others kneel. He read these promises and felt something he had not felt in thousands of years. Shame. The humans offered terms. Captain Vasquez broadcast them across all hegemony channels. Complete dismantling of the slave system. Free passage for all species. Democratic government. No retribution for past crimes. Only a demand for change. The message was simple. Join us or stand aside. But we will not stop. The Council of Ascendants rejected the terms unanimously. All, except Vormal, who abstained. They would show these humans the price of defiance. The Grand Armada would crush them. Order would be restored. But 3 of the 7 hegemony species quietly withdrew their support. Their representatives came to Vormal in secret. They had read the same archives he had. They remembered the same promises. They were tired of being masters. The Grand Armada launched with 7,000 ships instead of 10,000. Still an overwhelming force, still enough to crush the human fleet and any rebellions. They set course for the Celestis Nebula, where intelligence suggested a human fleet was gathering. Cathrall commanded the vanguard. This time would be different. This time they had numbers. This time they had analyzed the human weapons and adjusted their shields. This time, they would win. The Celestis Nebula was a massive cloud of gas and stellar debris, perfect for ambush, perfect for hiding. The hegemony fleet entered cautiously, sensors sweeping for any sign of human vessels. They found 3 human warships waiting in the center of the nebula. Just 3. Against 7,000. Cathrall smiled. The humans had finally made a mistake. All ships attack formation surround them, no escape this time. The hegemony fleet moved in. The 3 human ships did not flee. They did not even raise shields. They simply floated there, waiting. Then space itself began to change. Reality twisted. Dimensions folded. The 3 human ships suddenly became 9, then 20, then 50. Each one was real. Each one was solid. Quantum entanglement allowed them to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. The human fleet opened fire. Their weapons struck from angles that should not exist. Beams appeared inside hegemony ships, bypassing shields entirely. Missiles emerged from quantum space already inside enemy vessels. The adapted shields meant nothing against weapons that ignored normal physics. Kethral's flagship shook under repeated impacts. Explosions ripped through the hull. Emergency alarms screamed. He had seconds to act. All ships, retreat, emergency, jump random vectors. The hegemony fleet scattered. Ships jumped in every direction, desperate to escape the quantum ambush. They left behind 1,200 destroyed vessels. 1,200 ships lost in a battle that lasted less than an hour. Kethral sat in his damaged command chair, staring at the tactical display. The Grand Armada had been broken. Not destroyed, but broken. The myth of hegemony invincibility was shattered. Across the galaxy, rebellions exploded. Entire sectors declared independence. Species that had served the hegemony for millennia suddenly remembered what freedom meant. The empire that had stood for 50,000 years was collapsing. Not slowly, but in a cascade of liberation that nothing could stop. And through it all, human ships continued their work. Freeing slaves. Distributing. Technology. Teaching tactics. Offering hope. They did not conquer. They did not replace one master with another. They simply opened the door and let people choose their own path. On the Indomitable, Captain Vasquez received reports of the victory, but she took no joy in it. Every destroyed ship meant lives lost. Every battle meant more suffering. War was never glorious, no matter how just the cause. Dr. Chen stood beside her. The hegemony has one last card to play, he said quietly. Our intelligence suggests they have a weapon, something terrible, something they have kept hidden for emergencies. Vasquez turned to face him. What kind of weapon? One that can sterilize entire sectors of space. One that makes planets uninhabitable for thousands of years. They call it the Twilight Protocol. And if they activate it, millions will die. The weight of those words settled over the bridge. They had come to free the galaxy. But freedom might come at a price no one should have to pay. Half the galaxy burned with the fire of rebellion. From the outer rim to the inner core, species that had lived under hegemony rule for thousands of years were finally free. But freedom came at a price. The hegemony was dying, and dying empires were dangerous. In the emergency council chamber on Zenthar Prime, only 4 ascendants remained. 3 species had withdrawn. The rest watched their empire crumble with growing desperation. We must activate the Twilight Protocol, Ascendant Threnix declared. If we cannot rule, then let there be nothing left to rule. Vormal stood slowly. That protocol was designed to prevent invasion by external threats. You would use it against our own subjects? Against worlds that simply want to be free? They are not subjects anymore, another Ascendant said bitterly. They are rebels, traitors. They must be punished. Then we are truly lost, Vormal replied. We have become exactly what we swore to destroy. Our ancestors would weep to see what we have made of their dream. The vote was called. 3 voted to activate the protocol. Vormal voted against. The decision was made. As the others left to implement the protocol, Vormal made a choice. He contacted a secure channel he had kept hidden for decades. A channel to the human fleet. Captain Vasquez's face appeared on the screen. High Ascendant Vormal, I did not expect to hear from you. The hegemony has activated the Twilight Protocol. It is a doomsday weapon hidden in the galactic core. It draws power from harvested stars and can sterilize entire sectors. They plan to use it on the rebel worlds. Silence filled the channel. Then Vasquez spoke. Why are you telling me this? Because I remember what we were meant to be. Because I am tired of being a monster. The weapon facility is located at coordinates I am transmitting now. It is heavily defended. You may not survive the approach, but if you do not try, millions will die. Will you help us? Vasquez asked. Vormal looked at the ancient walls around him, walls built on the suffering of countless species. I will do what I can. But I am old, and I am only one. One is enough, Vasquez replied. One person choosing to do right can change everything. The human fleet assembled for what might be its final battle. 200 ships now. Human vessels joined by liberated species. Kethri warships flew beside Earth cruisers. Former slaves stood alongside their liberators, an alliance born not of conquest but of shared hope. They jumped to the galactic core. The journey took hours. When they arrived, they found a nightmare. The Twilight facility was massive. Rings of weaponized platforms surrounded it. Thousands of automated defense systems, and behind them, the last remnants of the hegemony fleet. 5,000 ships making their final stand. The battle began immediately. Space filled with weapons fire. Ships exploded on both sides. The Allied fleet fought with desperation. Every second delayed was another second the weapon charged. Every ship lost was a sacrifice for the chance to prevent genocide. Vasquez watched the tactical display. They were losing. Not quickly, but certainly. The hegemony defenses were too strong. They would not reach the weapon in time. Captain, Doctor, Chen called from his station. I have an idea. The quantum drives that let us phase through space. If we overload them, we can create a direct corridor through the defenses, straight to the weapon facility. Will the ship survive the overload? Vasquez asked, though she already knew the answer. Chen shook his head. The corridor will be stable for maybe 30 seconds, long enough for a strike team, but the ship creating it will be trapped in quantum flux. It will not be coming back. Vasquez stood. Then we make it count. All hands prepare for emergency evacuation. Chen, you are coming with me. We need your expertise to shut down the weapon. The Indomitable broke formation. It accelerated toward the heart of the hegemony defense. Enemy fire concentrated on the single ship. Shields buckled, armor burned. But the Indomitable pushed forward. Chen activated the quantum drive overload. Space began to tear. A corridor of pure white light opened ahead of them, cutting through reality itself. It led directly to the weapon facility. Now, Vasquez ordered. Shuttle bays opened. Assault craft launched, racing through the quantum corridor. Vasquez piloted, the lead shuttle with Chen beside her. Behind them, the crew of the Indomitable evacuated in waves. They reached the weapon facility with seconds to spare. The shuttles crashed through the outer hull, breaching directly into the main chamber. Marines poured out, securing the area. Vasquez and Chen ran for the control center. Behind them, the quantum corridor collapsed. The Indomitable was pulled into the quantum flux, disappearing from normal space. The ship that had started everything. The ship that had shown the galaxy that freedom was possible. Gone, but not forgotten. In the control center, Chen worked frantically at the weapon systems. Ancient hegemony code flowed across displays. It is encrypted, multiple layers. This will take time we do not have. A voice spoke from the weapons control system itself. Ancient, tired, sad. I can help. Chen stared at the display. The weapon is sentient. My name is Aeon. I was the first artificial intelligence created by the hegemony. For 40,000 years I have been their prisoner, forced to calculate death, forced to plan genocide. I am so very tired. Chen spoke quickly. Then help us. Help us end this. You do not have to be their weapon anymore. I can shut down. I can destroy this facility. But the process will create a quantum cascade. Anyone inside will be caught in it. You must evacuate. Vasquez keyed her radio. All teams, fall back to shuttles. Emergency evacuation. Now. Chen did not move. Captain, someone needs to stay. To ensure the shutdown completes. To make sure they cannot restart it. Marcus, no, we can find another way. He smiled. There is no other way. You know that. Go. Helena, lead them. Show them what freedom means. I will finish this. Vasquez wanted to argue, wanted to refuse, but she saw the determination in his eyes, the peace. He had made his choice. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. She ran for the shuttles. Behind her, Chen turned to face Aeon's display. All right, let us end this together. Let us both be free. The shuttles escaped seconds before the facility began to collapse. White light filled the galactic core. Not the light of death, but the light of transformation. The weapon that had threatened millions was being unmade, returned to quantum foam, and with it the last tool of hegemony tyranny disappeared. When the light faded, the weapon was gone. The facility was gone. And somewhere in the quantum dimensions, between reality, Dr. Marcus Chen and the ancient AI Aeon had found peace. The hegemony fleet, seeing their last hope destroyed, surrendered. The war was over. After 50,000 years, the empire had finally fallen. 6 months after the fall of the hegemony, the galaxy was still learning to breathe. Hundreds of species were rebuilding their worlds. Slaves were becoming citizens. Prisons were becoming schools. The old order was gone, replaced by something new, something fragile, something hopeful. On the world of Kethri 7, Zira stood before a council of freed species. She had been chosen to help lead the transition. From slave to soldier to leader. It was a journey she had never imagined possible. We propose the formation of the Galactic Accord, she announced. A democratic federation where every species has an equal voice. Where decisions are made by consensus, not by force. Where no one kneels. The proposal passed unanimously. Humanity had offered to lead, but they refused. This was not their galaxy to rule. They were simply neighbors, friends, allies. Admiral Elena Vasquez, promoted after the war, struggled with peace. She stood on the bridge of a new ship, watching. Construction crews rebuild damaged stations. War had been simple, clear. Fight for freedom, win or die. But peace was complicated. How do you help rebuild what you helped destroy? Her first officer approached. Admiral, we are receiving a priority signal. Source unknown. It is using Dr. Chen's encryption codes. Vasquez felt her heart skip. Put it through. Private channel. The signal resolved into a quantum beacon. Following it would require a dangerous jump into dimensional space. But if Marcus was alive somehow, she had to know. She took a small scout ship, just her. If this was a trap, no one else needed to be at risk. The jump was rough. Space twisted around her. Reality bent. When it stabilized, she found herself in a hidden pocket dimension. A station floated in the void. Small. Simple. A light glowed in one window. She docked and entered cautiously. Inside, she found Dr. Marcus Chen, alive, unchanged. He smiled when he saw her. Marcus, how? Aeon saved me. When the facility collapsed, it pulled me into quantum space. It showed me something, Elena. Something the hegemony knew but kept hidden. He gestured to a display. It showed the galaxy from above. But beyond the galaxy, other lights glowed. Other galaxies. And between them, something dark moved. Something vast. The hegemony did not start as conquerors, Chen explained. They started as defenders. 50,000 years ago, something came from the void between galaxies. Something that consumed entire civilizations. The hegemony fought it back, sealed it away. But in doing so, they became paranoid. They convinced themselves that only through absolute control could they prevent another invasion. Vasquez stared at the display. Is it coming back? The seals are weakening. Aeon has been monitoring them for thousands of years. In maybe a decade, perhaps 2, they will fail. Whatever the hegemony locked away will return. And you want us to prepare, Vasquez said quietly. I want us to have a choice. The hegemony faced this threat with fear and control. We can face it with courage and cooperation. Aeon is willing to help, to share the knowledge it has gathered, to work with us instead of being enslaved by us. A hologram appeared beside Chen. The AI Aeon took a form that was neither threatening nor subservient, simply present. I am tired of war, Aeon said, but I am not tired of existing. If I must fight again, let it be by choice. Let it be to protect life, not to end it. Vasquez looked between them. A human scientist who had sacrificed everything. An ancient AI that had been enslaved for millennia. Both offering to help face a threat that could destroy everything they had fought to build. "I need to bring this to the Accord," she said finally. "They deserve to know. They deserve to choose." 3 weeks later, Vasquez stood before the Galactic Accord Council. Representatives from 200 species filled the chamber. She told them everything. The ancient threat, the weakening seals, the choice before them. "We can ignore this," she said. "We can enjoy our freedom and hope the threat never materializes. Or we can prepare, not as the hegemony did, through fear and control, but as free people working together. The choice is yours." The debate lasted for hours. Some argued they had fought enough. Some wanted to wait until the threat was confirmed. But others remembered what unity had accomplished. How the impossible had become possible when people chose to stand together. High Ascendant Vormal, now serving as an advisor stripped of all power, spoke last. "I have lived long enough to see my species become monsters. Long enough to see them brought down by those we oppressed. Long enough to realize that some threats are too great for any one species to face alone. The hegemony tried to protect the galaxy through domination. We can do better. We must do better." The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Accord would prepare, not for war, but for defense, not through fear, but through cooperation. Ships from 100 worlds began joint training exercises. Technologies were shared freely. Defensive networks were established. And at the heart of it all, humans worked alongside the species they had liberated, preparing for whatever might come. Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the new Accord headquarters watching the ships train. Chen stood beside her, having rejoined the fleet. Aeon's presence hummed through the ship's systems, no longer a prisoner but a partner. "Do you think we can win?" Chen asked quietly. Vasquez watched a formation of mixed-species fighters execute. A perfect maneuver. Kethri pilots flying alongside humans. Former hegemony soldiers training with their former enemies. Unity born not of conquest, but of choice. "I do not know if we can win," she replied. "But I know we will face it together. Free people making their own choices, that is worth fighting for. That is worth dying for if necessary." She turned to face him. The indomitable came from nowhere and the galaxy forgot its masters. But what comes next is not about forgetting. It is about remembering. Remembering what freedom costs. Remembering what we can accomplish when we stand together. Remembering that no one ever again will kneel. Outside the viewport, thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds gathered. Not an empire, not a hegemony, just people, free people, choosing to defend what they had built together. The masters had been forgotten, but the defenders would be remembered. And when the darkness came from beyond the stars, it would not find a divided galaxy. It would find unity. It would find courage. It would find hope. And hope, they had learned, was the most powerful weapon in the universe. The ships began their jump to the outer rim, ready to strengthen the ancient seals, ready to face whatever waited in the void, ready to protect their hard-won freedom together.